starting today, and then once a month between now and June, unless we all decide that this was a terrible idea and that we need to put it in the garbage can of bad ideas that just need to go and go to the garbage can forever. This is our first open door Shabbat. So the way I set it up was that because I think that 90 minutes is probably the maximum amount of time that someone really can handle a learning-oriented service before they get antsy, is that we're starting our Shabbat service at 10:30, but at 10 o'clock we're doing an introductory meditation before we start, so that no one feels like they show up and they're just waiting around here for a half an hour. So we're gonna do a little bit of that, and then at 9:30 we're gonna get started. And of course, Tat Shabbat is happening per usual with our little people at 11. So you don't need anything for the moment. If you have your Siddur, that's great, because at 10:30 you'll need the Siddur. And we're going to try and do a little bit of meditation together. I am 3/4 of the way through my clergy meditation fellowship that I'm in. I have not decided to move to a Buddhist monk colony in Nepal, at least not yet. Not yet. There's still time, right? I think that it's really, really valuable. It's been really very valuable for me in particular because it's very helpful to help people keep things slower and to really focus more on your breathing and your breath. So if you've never done any meditation before, it's okay. You don't need to know how to do anything other than how to breathe. You're going to learn the Torah portion? Okay. So all you got to know is learn how to breathe. Which hopefully we all know how to do that, right? Okay. And one of the things is that when I teach meditation, I keep my eyes closed basically the whole time. And the reason I do that is so that no one feels embarrassed about the rabbi looking at them. Good morning.
Good morning.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to ACI. I'm Rabbi Josh. What are your names?
I'm Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Asi.
Okay. Did you hear about Open Door Shabbat? Is that what, or you're just trying us out for the first? Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. So is that Jenny and Asi? Okay. Very nice. So welcome. You're here on such an interesting Shabbat to come because this is something we're trying out for the first time, which is called Open Door Shabbat. So what we're doing right now is we're doing a brief meditation service between now and about 10:30. At 10:30, we're going to start the regular Shabbat service, which is going to be more discussion and explaining oriented so that people can feel a little less lost in the Shabbat morning service, which may or may not be something that you all have experienced here or at any other synagogue you've ever been to. Sound good? Okay. So like I said, so when I teach meditation, I keep my eyes closed pretty much the whole time. Part of the reason is I worry that if people see me with my eyes open looking at the room, they worry about the rabbi staring at them. And it's not polite to stare, first of all, but also, it might not be something you've ever really tried before. So find yourself a comfortable position, okay? You're welcome just to stay seated in your pew. But if you want to be really ambitious and you've actually done some of this before, there's nothing wrong. You can sleep on the floor. I actually sit on the floor. Excuse me. I actually have an inflatable pillow in my bag that I travel with. So if I ever want to meditate by lying on the ground, I can do that. There actually was an article this week in the New York Times Science section about the health benefits of lying on a hard floor on the surface. You saw this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was great.
It was like speaking my language. But I'm going to sit here. So Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you don't, that's also okay. But just take a few seconds to sort of breathe. Breathing in and out, in, out, in, out, in, out. It's really fitting that we're going to try this more meditative experience because, believe it or not, it's actually the more authentically traditional way to pray in Judaism, which is 2,000 years ago, we were told that the sages who kind of created the prayer service we do today, the ones that were really, really focused, would meditate for an hour before they started their service and meditate for an hour afterwards. So for those of you who worry that synagogue is already too long, that's basically adding an extra 2 hours to their prayer experience every single day. But the basic idea is that if we rush into things, and we rush into things where the goal is to be intentional, we're going to have a much harder time connecting with the experience. And so it is with our breath. Breath is one of these things where you do it all the time and you don't even realize it. But what about when it becomes really, really difficult? Thursday night, my aunt, my father's sister-in-law, passed away. And I'm going to be going Sunday night to officiate her funeral on Monday. But her sons were describing to me, just as they were giving me updates, how much harder it was becoming for her to breathe as she was in hospice and was declining. We all have seen what it's like for it to be hard to breathe. And most of us are fortunately able to go through most days not even thinking about it. So try and focus a little bit on your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and breathe out. Try and sit quietly for a moment or two, just focusing on your breathing. slowing down our bodies is not easy. And it's actually very applicable to our experience praying. What I'm going to try and convince all of us of today in our first Open Door Shabbat is that the stuff that we rush through the most in our Siddur might be the most interesting of all the things in our prayer experience. So we're going to start off with one of those passages. It's very simple. You don't need to open your Siddur. But it's one of the passages that you recite. Traditionally, you're supposed to recite upon waking up in the morning. And the words of that passage are, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. The soul that you, my God, have given me is pure. It's important to know that when we use the word nefesh or neshama in Judaism, the term neshama is probably a term that originally just meant being alive. So when we say, is there a difference between a body and a soul, or what does it even mean to have a soul, it may or may not be all that relevant to what originally we meant by this. Because in some sense, all we're thanking God for when we wake up in the morning is for being alive again. And that seems like a very easy thing to be thankful for. Yet one most of us don't spend a lot of time thinking about. We jump out of bed or begrudgingly get out of bed and we start our day. The fact that we've gone to sleep and we've woken up alive again is not something we even think about. So the soul that God gives us every day is something not to be taken for granted. And that it's pure is what I like to describe as God, that you're pure because God made you and God doesn't make mistakes. This isn't to say that God never made a mistake, but to say that you're not a mistake, that you start off every day as being good exactly as who you are, and it's what you do with it the rest of the day that really counts. So there's a brief chant for this. To the words, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 The soul that you, my God, have given me is pure. When you wake up in the morning, it's probably a reasonable question as whether or not you like the person that you see when you wake up in the morning. And we're not nearly close enough for you to have to answer that question to me. But part of this passage is a reminder when you wake up in the morning is that regardless of what you see, in our tradition, there's someone who was a part of allowing you to be able to wake up each and every day who does think that you're good just the way you are. That basic act of gratitude is a powerful way to start our day, especially when we know that we've been going through a lot of difficult days. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 In a moment or two, what we're going to do is we're just going to sit in silence for 5 minutes and just focus on your breathing. Try to think, though, as best you can about what it means if you were to take seriously the idea of starting every day just remembering this basic line, that the life, the soul you've been given is pure, just the way it is. Later this morning, we're going to learn from some of my friends from Sella in Brooklyn about helping people who are struggling with substance abuse. And one of the things that people who work in that field will tell you is that among the reasons that people might struggle with this is a feeling that there's something already wrong with them that they just can't fix. But what would it mean every morning to tell yourself that you are right just the way you are? So we're going to do the chant one more time, and then sit quietly for 5 minutes. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. We're going to do a 5-minute sit, starting now. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. We're going to start with our main Shabbat service in 5 minutes. So if you need to take a stretch, you stretch. I hear the doors opening and the bell being sounded, so you will need a siddur for what we're doing this morning, if you don't have one.
Hi. Right. Nice to meet you, Brian. How are you? Okay, how are you? Okay. Well, this is Mount Sinai congregation, so long time ago. They are so right here. Oh, I didn't know here. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, on Saturday. Oh, okay. You live in the short? Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. We're delighted to have you. Today is a little different. I don't know. That's okay. Well, we like to try things out. So, it's really nice to meet you, Brian, and you're welcome here anytime you like. Oh, great. Great. Is there a membership? Yes. Okay. So, Mount Sinai is open to pay membership for you. Okay. So whatever it is, let me know. All right. Check out this. Okay, you can tell well, sorry, I'll tell Sally on that. It just seems that you got very easy but if you need some time to try us out, we don't expect that you have to show up on time and then join. We're happy to earn your trust.
Well, I'm shoeless at the moment, so.
Okay.
I did the Zoom for the guys for them. It was an older congregation, so I did the Zoom for that. I ran the Zoom for them, carried it over, they all kind of set up and clean up, of course. So,
Cool. Always delighted to have you.
yeah, it'll be nice to meet you. I know about the guys. I spoke to them about you.
Oh, good. We're glad you're here. Rocky's out of town this weekend.
Yeah, he told me.
Yeah, so. All right.
So excellent, sir. Love to see you and be here. We can do a regular service.
This is a, yes, kind of, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll explain it. I'll explain it. Okay, yeah, I'll clarify there. Yeah. Jenny, what's the last thing you were? Oh. So you. Got it. So that's how you come to it. That's how you come to it. See you as much as you like. It's nice to have you back. Right? Are you going to your face with your next? Okay. All right. We have a lot of new people around, so there are also people who are here for quite a while. I don't think everyone's pretty friendly.
Sorry, Jenny, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you. It's also my first time, sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, no. Fair. You could have a story after a while. Yeah. Are you and where? So I'm right now.
Okay.
So guys.
Okay, back to business. All right, Shabbat Shalom again, everybody. So, again, it is really cool to me actually that on a morning that we're trying this thing out for the first time, we have like a bunch of new people who didn't even know we were doing this, but I actually think it's perfect because it gets to why we decided to try Open Door Shabbat, which is to take things a little slower and help people feel a little more comfortable in shul. I have a rabbi who was one of like my teachers and one of the rabbis I probably admire the most in my career, who told me that like a good prayer experience should be like great barbecue, which is like rich and thick and low and slow. His point was like, you know, if any of you are like people who like to cook, sometimes you need real time. You need time to actually make these things settle. But on a typical Saturday, or really any service, there's like a time crunch that's sort of built into the prayer experience, which is either if you're doing it on a weekday, people are trying to go to work, or they're coming home from work. If you're doing it on Saturday, people have other things they're trying to do. They want to know when Kiddush is going to be. So basically, we've set up a situation where by never slowing down we've made it impossible for people who might want to find a Saturday morning experience to be good for them to actually really appreciate it, because everyone else in that space is rushing along. And so the way that I am setting this up for our monthly try at this is that we're going to focus each month really, really intently on one part of the Shabbat morning service and do a more abbreviated part of the rest of it. And that way you can really kind of hone in on what it is that what each part is about, and hopefully feel more settled in a good way as we and hopefully coming back on other days when we're doing quote unquote the normal service, which is not really a term that I like. So with that in mind, I'm going to start out with a picture here. Hopefully it's not that hard to see. Oh, hello. Good morning.
Hey, Rabbi, good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. So many exciting things going on today. So this is a picture. Hopefully you can see it. Can anyone tell me how this picture is like going to synagogue?
Your attention during the service.
Right. Yeah. So okay. So what? Right. So it's a line that goes up and down. You know, I sort of use colors in this picture in a way that it's like, you know, you think like, what are some things? What are some objects? What are some things you think of? This reminds you of when you see it in this picture, like an actual object. What? Yeah, it can look like a mountain. What else might it look like? A signature? What? Yeah, it can look like an EKG machine. Stock market, right? Like it can look like a trend line about financial lines, right? So it's something where we're used to the idea that sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes way up and sometimes it goes way down. So as Susan said, it's a little bit like our attention spans. Sometimes they go up and sometimes they go down. How else is this like a prayer experience? One is our attention, yes?
So are we
Okay, yes, right. So there are things that we set up in different parts of the service as being more peaks for it, and that leads to another way in which it reminds us of this picture. Because what do we typically do in peak parts of the service? We stand up, right? Sometimes you're sitting down for long periods of time. Sometimes you're standing up. And, on days that are considered more important in the Jewish calendar, like say on Yom Kippur, you stand up a lot more than you would normally stand up the rest of the year. So we're sitting down, we're standing up. Now, what else is it like? Attention, standing, sitting. Yeah, sometimes we're singing, and sometimes we're mumbling. In theory, all of these things are praying, except, getting back to why we're here, to try something a little bit different. If most of the service is spent mumbling, then and you really don't know what's going on, then the mumbling part can be what for lack of a better word we would call like dead time, to where people's minds start to wander. My personal favorite of how this also can remind it is sometimes you want to be here and sometimes you don't. Now, some of you might be people who are like, well, if I don't want to be here, then I won't show up. But some of us, are used to going to shul like quite regularly. And just because we go every week or every day doesn't necessarily mean we always want to be where we are. So prayer is a lot like this. Prayer is a lot like this. And I hope that it's possible that there's some people here who have never in their lifetime ever had, a really peak level experience. Hopefully you've never really had a low level experience either. Maybe it's just sort of been flat the whole time. But flat is not necessarily great either for a relationship to praying. If it's flat all the time, then it doesn't really seem like there's any point to it. And so that's going to inform how we learn about the first part of a morning service, which is not any different between Shabbat and the rest of the year. So, and what I know is always super popular at ACI, and I have not made all of you do since Rosh Hashanah, you're going to have to go talk to somebody who you don't know in a moment. I know people are, making faces. They're like, oh, thought we were rid of that. It was bad enough you made me do that on Rosh Hashanah. But again, don't be afraid. I want you to find someone to sit with and to tell them either a story or a series of stories about yourself that explains what it feels like for you to walk inside a synagogue on Shabbat morning. Now, you might tell a story of saying, like, it's a routine I've been doing every week of my life for as long as I can remember. And it could also be like, it is the most terrifying thing in the universe for me because I really just don't have much interest in being here. I don't know what's going on. There's no right or wrong answer. The only thing you do is your partner listens and they ask you questions. It's not a conversation. It's you listening to one person, asking them questions, then you switch and you do the same. You repeat the same thing. So again, you're describing a story or stories about you that would explain what it feels like for you to walk into a synagogue. Go forth, friends, and find someone to sit with. I know. You got to get up and you got to find people. Yes.
So my relationship with community services started.
I'd recommend making sure you've switched partners by now if you haven't already, so you both get a chance to speak. Okay. Take one more minute and start wrapping up. Shabbat shalom. Good to see you again. Okay, my friends. Hopefully, talking to someone you don't know was not too painful of an experience. I only make you do it every couple of months. Okay, yeah, I know. I didn't come to shul to meet any new people. I just came there to sit there and have nobody notice me that I was there. Okay, so the Sidor, you should go and get one in the back because what we're going to start off with this morning is the first part of a morning service, which actually, in theory, doesn't even have a name. We tend to call it, if you look at it in a book, they tend to call it the morning blessings or Berkot HaShachar. But it's not really an organized part of a service in that it is made up of all different kinds of passages. And to be honest, they're actually the most interesting passages in the entire Siddur, in my opinion. And for the most part, you go to pretty much any synagogue, they're rushed through pretty quickly. One, they're usually at the beginning. So unless you're a very devoted person who never should have been to shul, by the time you arrive, they're already over. And they are so they're so kind of all over the place in their content that sometimes you can feel like there's no rhyme or reason to why I make them in there. So what I want to show you, there are multiple handouts for today. This is not a handout about the Torah. You can get that later. Start passing that back. This is a supplement for you about their Berkot HaShachar, what I like to call mumble mania. If you show up in a shul and you see the beginning of the service, it's oftentimes what you would describe as lots and lots of mumbling, which is what it can feel like if you really don't know what's going on. So open your Siddur, page 65. Okay, this is the first prayer, at least at ACI, that we recite in the morning, which are called the morning blessings. I'm actually also teaching them to our Hebrew school students right now. Most synagogues, actually, if you went to it, this is probably the first or second prayer they do in the morning. There are some differences if you went to an Orthodox synagogue at some point in your life, but these are sort of morning blessings that we thank God for a bunch of things for. Now, what I want you to see here on this handout is a text from the Talmud, and I want we're going to read it, and you're going to look at it side by side with this actual prayer. So, do I have a brave volunteer who might be willing to read this passage of the Talmud in the English? Don't worry, I'm not going to read it all in Hebrew. Can I get a volunteer to read it in English? Or am I going to do all the talking this morning? Ariel, thank you. Yeah, upon hearing the sound of the rooster.
On the hearing of the sound of the rooster, one should recite, "Blessed who gave the heart understanding to distinguish between day and night, Upon opening his eyes, one should recite, "Blessed, who gives sight to the blind." Upon sitting up straight, one should recite, "Blessed, who sets captives free." Upon dressing, one should recite, "Blessed, who clothes the naked, as they would sleep unclothed." Upon standing up straight, one should recite, "Blessed, who raises those bowed down." Upon descending from one's bed to the ground, one should recite, "Blessed, who spreads the earth above the waters," in thanksgiving for the creation of the solid ground upon which to walk. Upon walking, one should recite, "Blessed, who makes the firm the steps of man." Upon putting on his shoes, one should recite, "Blessed, who has provided me with all I need," as shoes are a basic necessity. Upon putting on his belt, one should recite, "Blessed, who girds Israel with strength." Upon spreading a shawl upon his head, one should recite, "Blessed, who crowns Israel with glory."
Okay, so if you're at all familiar with the Hebrew that you see in the Siddur and what's written there, you'll notice that this is a passage that describes each of the blessings that we recite this morning. So the first blessing, it says, Baruch Asher Natan L'Sech B'Nala Akim B'Yom B'Mala. That's the first blessing of your Kodesh HaKodesh. Well, what is the one big difference between the way the Talmud describes that we should say these prayers and the way we actually say them? Look at what Ariel read, and what is the big difference between how the Talmud says we should say it versus how we actually say it? Right, okay, so Susan said there's an action and then there's a blessing. It's not that you just go and you say all these blessings at once, say it, recite Amen, say another blessing, say Amen over and over again. It's that you actually are supposed to do these things when you're actually doing an action that corresponds to the blessing. My personal favorite, of course, is that there's one for putting on your belt. I've still never been entirely sure what that's all about, but there are blessings for every situation. Now, what do you think? Why do you think at some point along the line we stopped doing it this way and then we just started saying them all at once in synagogue? Because most people don't do it this way. Most people, if they pray every morning, they pray them all at once. They don't say, this one I open my eyes, and this one I, put on my belt or tie my shoes. Why do you think, don't overthink it. Why do you think people might have changed it from the way that it's described here to, say that louder, Luke? Say more.
It just makes it more time efficient.
Yeah, it feels more time efficient to just say them all at once. Otherwise, you're just having to go through a bunch of steps in the morning. And, I imagine that getting up in the morning thousands of years ago wasn't that different from getting up in the morning today, which is that, there are people who are tired or they don't sleep well, or, there's something that woke them up in the middle of the night, or they had a bad dream. Like, it's not that different from what it was 2,000 years ago. So at some point, someone was just like, I know what'll make it more efficient. We'll say them all at once. But what happens to the experience of saying them when you say them all at once? It loses their meaning, yeah. Yeah, it loses their depth. It makes it harder for you to understand what they're even saying. Some of the, sorry, Vita? Yeah, I mean, if you're just rushing through them, then it's harder for you to understand it. And by the way, if you're someone who doesn't know that much about being in synagogue and you want to, you worry about not really knowing what the prayers mean, coming into a synagogue and only seeing people mumbling a bunch of blessings I would not blame you for saying that it makes it sound like people are reciting a bunch of gibberish in a language you don't understand. Because if all you're saying them as fast as you possibly can, then that's all that it can look to someone else. So we've changed a lot of prayers in this way. A lot of prayers that we used to say in a highly sort of slow and intentional way, we've compacted to say them all at once. Now, does it mean that it's reasonable for every person to say them exactly the way the Talmud told us to? Maybe not, but I would venture to guess that if you tried to say one of these blessings for one of these actions every day, just the one of them, it would probably be as meaningful than just mumbling all of them all together as one big block of Hebrew text. And so this is one of the things that is at the most challenging about this. So I imagine this passage was written before ACI was founded. It's definitely like over 100 years old, but if you turn to the back, you'll see there was a novel called Children of the Ghetto. And it was about some of the early immigrant Jewish communities in New York, probably on the Lower East Side, where most of the Jewish community was over 100 years ago. And the passage about the Siddur says, when reciting the prayers in the Siddur, the Jews prayed metaphysics, acrostics, angelology, Kabbalah, history, exegetics, Talmudic controversies, menus, recipes. Yes, there are menus in the Siddur, and I can explain it later if you want to know where there's a recipe. Priestly prescriptions, the canonical books, psalms, love poems, and undigested hodgepodge of exalted and questionable sentiments of communal and egoistic aspirations of the highest order. The Siddur is a compilation of all of these things and much more. Go to the third paragraph. But they did not always know what they were saying, they always meant it. If the service had been more intelligible, it would have been less emotional and edifying. There was not a sentiment, however, incomprehensible, for which they were not ready to die or to damn. I don't think Israel Zangel was a big fan of going to synagogue on Shabbat morning, but I think he makes a very good point, which is there's a lot of stuff in here, and if you take the time to really read it slowly and clearly, another reason, in addition to time, is you might not necessarily like all the things that you read. You might not necessarily like all the things that you read. So one option for why we rush through some of these things is we don't really want to spend a lot of time unpacking what it means when we say X or Y. And so it's easier just to rush through it. It's easier just to rush through it. That's not necessarily the reason I rush through it. I rush through it because I'm a normal person who has enough trouble getting through all the things I need to do every day, and I want to make sure that I pray. But one reason we might not slow down is because we wonder, are the things that we're saying really things that we want to be saying? And sometimes, as we go through this, you're going to probably say, yeah, I don't really know how I feel about saying this. And sometimes you're going to slow down, you're going to be like, wow, I didn't even know that was something I could be saying, or I should be saying, or it's something that Judaism maybe cares about my saying. So with that, turn in your Siddurim to page 63. If you are familiar with this blessing, I urge you not to answer the question that I will ask in a moment, which is, when does one recite this blessing? If you already know the answer, I would urge you not to answer so that people who are learning this can figure it out. This is a blessing that's recited right before Birkot HaShachar. It says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, uvarav bo nikavim nikavim, talulim talulim, galui b'yadu libnei chisei kavodecha, she'im yipatech echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, I efshar lehitkayem v'la'amod lefanecha. Baruch atah Adonai rofech kol basar, umafli la'asot. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe, fashioning the human body in wisdom, creating openings, arteries, glands, and organs, marvelous in structure, intricate in design. Should but one of them fail to function by being blocked or opened, it would be impossible to exist. Praised are you, Adonai, healer of all flesh, sustaining our bodies in wondrous ways. Now, this is not a blessing that we recite in a synagogue, but it is in the Siddur. It's in pretty much every Siddur you'll see. When might someone recite this blessing? Again, if you already know the answer, don't share it. When might someone recite this blessing? For those of you who don't know anything about the Siddur, and you're here trying to learn more, when might someone recite a blessing like this?
After using the bathroom.
After using a bathroom. Did you already know the answer? Okay. Why did you say after using the bathroom? Because that is the correct answer. What? Yes. So this is a blessing that traditionally is said after going to the bathroom. If you go to, certain Jewish institutions, you'll see this blessing up on the wall right outside of the bathroom, because you're probably wondering, wait, if I'm not supposed to say God's name in the bathroom, you don't actually say it in the bathroom, you say it immediately when you get out of it. But it is a blessing, and it's weird because it's a pretty long blessing to say after you go to the bathroom. I'm not sure if is anybody here like a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan? Did you see this past week's episode? Okay, yes. So one thread of, I'm giving away too much by this, is that Larry David comments in the episode that how much time is wasted in his life is spent in the bathroom. And so he decides to make it into something useful by basically memorizing the Gettysburg Address. So he takes as I think that there's a Gettysburg Address in someone's house in the bathroom. So he just starts reading the Gettysburg Address over and over and over again until he has memorized the entire Gettysburg Address. I think the Gettysburg Address is longer than this blessing, but not by much. That's a pretty long blessing. And what I'm going to give you right now is 2 questions that you can ask about any prayer in the singular, any prayer that will make the prayer more meaningful after you've come up with an answer for it than when you started. Guaranteed. Okay? So, question number 1 is this. Why did someone decide to write this prayer? Now, some prayers are actual text from the Torah, but almost all prayers had to be written by a human being. Okay, so other than say like the Shema, these prayers actually had to be written by a human. We often don't know who wrote them, but someone had to write it. So tell me a story about a person who decided that they would write a blessing for after going to the bathroom. Okay, so one is it might not be something that's all that easy for them. Yeah, for sure. What else? Yeah, grateful with the body's design.
A lot of times think about their body and how it's working.
Yeah, they might have had some reason where their body stopped working. You mentioned, that they were constipated, but the reality is that, having trouble going to the bathroom is often an indicator of a bunch of other problems that you can be having in your body. So in some sense, being able to do that without it being difficult is a symbol that your body is working. So this probably means that this person at some point in their life wasn't having every part of their body working the way they wanted it to. And that leads us to the second question, which is, how would you recite this prayer if you were really taking its meaning serious? How would you recite this prayer if you took its meaning really seriously? So I know it's a little bit of a harder question. Yeah, that's possible. But what is it? I mean, when I say how would you recite it, it's how would you hope that it would try and change the way you go about your day if you were really internalizing its message? What would be different about yes, Rachel?
You'd actually appreciate how your body functions. Be conscious.
Yeah, you would notice little things and appreciate that they all work. Right, yeah?
In the world has this ability. There are people that can't have to go to the bathroom at all, that use like a chronic kind of bag, things of that nature. There's grateful to think, hey, I can go to the bathroom, and that would be the world.
Yeah, some people have bodies that don't allow them to just go to the bathroom as if they take it for granted. By the way, there are some places in the world where, access to toilets, like, to a functioning sewage system is also not something that they really can take for granted. I actually knew someone who was like an engineer who started a company called Toilets for People. And basically the idea was trying to revolutionize the toilet, because there are lots of places in the world where, the ability to have what we don't even realize everything that happens after we use the bathroom here in the United States. It goes to pipes. That works. It goes to treatment centers where basically the water, where all the junk is flushed out, and eventually that water gets recycled and goes right back into our toilets. That's a very complicated system that I could not possibly explain, but it's not something to be taken for granted, because there are places where you don't have access to that. So what do you do with everything that's going on there? These are not small things. You might think more about your body and how you don't pay enough attention to your body. You might think more about the world and all the people in the world who don't have access to something as basic as a functioning bathroom. But I would venture to guess that you would recite it differently. If you were really taking it seriously, you would recite it differently. So these two questions: why did someone write this prayer? And how would I really recite it if I were taking its meaning seriously? You can ask about any prayer in the Siddur. So for me, it's the most important thing that we can learn in our first Open Door Shabbat, which is no matter where you go for synagogue, no matter what's in the Siddur, no matter what prayer you're reciting, you can ask this question, and it will make what you're reciting even 1% more meaningful than it was before. Just because you took the time to think about it. Just because you took the time to think about it. Oh, Shabbat Shalom. Do we have a Mazel Tov in order, by the way?
Yes.
Oh. When was the new baby born?
March 8th.
Okay. So wish a Mazel Tov to... Rebecca's not here, but I hope she's resting. Okay. All right, good. Okay, welcome, Rabbi Josh. Hi, welcome to ACI. Okay, we have another new baby born at ACI in the last month. This is all very exciting. Okay. All right. So we've gone through part of the morning of the Photoshop part. And again, if you look through every one of the prayers, and I'm always happy to do that with anybody, we could be spending hours and hours on it. But I want to make sure there's also a little time for you to do something a little more traditional in prayer. So I'm going to make a space for about 10 minutes for people to recite the Shema and the Amidah. Now, I'm not going to say anything throughout this place. I learned recently about this concept in I think it's from Japanese culture. It's called ma, and it means the concept of negative space. That find that there's value in not having to fill up everything in a picture or everything in a room with something else. So rabbis have a hard time with this because we try to fill up every space with words. But sometimes the best way to actually have an impact on people is to not say words, just let them be. That's not always easy for me. Hopefully it will work well for you. So, for 10 minutes, if you're very concerned about, in terms of traditional Judaism, what you have to absolutely recite every single morning, I totally respect that. I care about that as well. The absolute minimum that you should be reciting is basically pages 107, which is where the Baruch Hu would be, through the end of the Amidah on page 127. So in those 10 minutes, we will be quiet, and if you'd like to recite that part, you can. We'll start with the Baruch Hu all together, and then we'll go into silence. If you would rather sit quietly, that's fine. If you enjoyed the meditation that we did at 10 o'clock, you can try some of that, if you so dare. Or you can take a break and go to the bathroom. All I ask if you go to the bathroom is if you say the blessing that we just learned. Okay, that's my only condition, is try and remember to say the blessing. Okay, so we rise on page 107 for the Baruch Hu, and after that we will be in silence. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Bo'ed, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Okay, 107, now we're going to go into silence. Ose shalom bimromav, huyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Shalom bimromav, huyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Okay. We're going to begin the Torah service now, our abbreviated Torah service for this week. Before Susan and I read the Aliyot we've selected for this week, why do we read the Torah in shul at all? You've been to a shul on Shabbat morning, you've heard the Torah read. It might be a different amount of it. It might sound different depending on what melody, people learn to sing it, but why do we read the Torah at all in synagogue? Okay, well, one reason is that it's a book of knowledge, absolutely.
It goes back to a time when people wouldn't have a Bible in their home.
Okay, so a lot of these things were set up at a time where, printing was not as common, so you had to hear these things in public. Because by the way, there's nothing in the Torah that suggests that the Torah needs to be read. I challenge you to go look back in the Torah and find a passage where it says anywhere in the Torah that you're supposed to read it, like we read it now. The answer, though, is that we read the Torah every Shabbat because it's supposed to be a slight duplication of the moment we actually got the Torah the first time. So meaning, every time that you walk up to the ark and open the ark to take the Torah out, it's supposed to be as if the Torah is being given to you again. And this comes from a time, thousands of years after the Israelites entered the land of Canaan, where, people weren't that familiar with what was in the Torah. So some of the prophets at the time basically came along and said, well, the only way that we're going to have people to remember what's in it is if we actually read it. So they started reading it in public. They started reading in public on Shabbat. They started reading in public on Mondays and Thursdays so that people would get used to the idea of hearing it. And eventually, what we do now is sort of a reminder that Torah being given to us year after year. So if you don't have a Chumash, there are Chumashim in the back. We're going to be reading a couple of aliyot from this morning's Torah portion, which is Parashat Pekudei, the last parasha of the second book of the Torah. Please rise as I take the Torah out. Okay. So now you're reading. Okay. That's okay.
Oh, wait, actually, the Torah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, never mind.
Well, you're giving out aliyot.
Well, it's to open the ark, I thought.
Oh, no, just three aliyot. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, Ariel, you're going to call up people?
Yeah.
Okay. You can be seated. Amen.
Kol havuga dalenu atnu kavod laTorah Asher ben Shimshon Halevi bimkom hakohen Baruch Shnatan Torah Lamo Yisrael b'kedushato
V'atem avikim Adonai Elohechem Haim kulchem hayom.
And if you don't have a scroll in front of you and you're reading from the book, it's on page 264.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
המשכן, משכן העדות, אשר פוקד על פי משה, עבודת כללים, ביד איתמר בן אהרון הכהן, ובצלאל בן אורי בן חור למטה יהודה, עשה את כל אשר ציווה אדוני את משה ביתו ליאב בן אחיסמך למטה דן חרש וחושב ורוקם בתולעת ובארגמן תכלת ובארגמן תולעת השני ובשש.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'Tachenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Yamod
Baruch ben Yitzchak.
Baruch ben Yitzchak Aliyah Hasheni.
This is emerging from Shabbat. Oh, yeah. Right side of here.
second aliyah is found on page 564, verse 24 through 27.
Baruch Adonai Hara.
Baruch Adonai Bara Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hara Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'kavanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et toratav. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Kol hazahav hasui lamlacha b'chol melechet hakodesh. Vayi zahavat mufate shaver esrim kikar shrameot shloshim shekel v'shekel hakodesh uchesed b'kudei ha'ida me'akikar ve'elef u'shrameot v'chamisha v'shivim shekel v'shekel hakodesh v'kala golgolet machatzira shekel v'shekel hakodesh l'chol aver al pkudim min esrim shana v'mala l'shesh me'ot elef u'shloshet alafim וחמש מאות וחמישים ויהי מהכיכר בכסף לצקת את עדני הקודש ואת עדני הפרוכת מעט עדנים ממעט הכיכר כיכר לעדן.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah hamet, v'chayei olam natan b'tukenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Zachariah Noah, then Mordechai Chaim, aliyah shlishi.
So we're finishing the book of Shemot with this aliyah. And so at the last line, which is right here. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, Ariel is going to ask you to stand, and at the end, we'll be saying, he'll lead you.
So this aliyah starts on page 565, verse 28, and then when we get to the beginning of 39, that first sentence there, I'll be right.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'kavanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et toratav. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ואתה אלף ושבע מאות וחמישה ושבעים עשה בבינו העמודים וציפה ראשיהם וחישק אותם ונחושת תנופה 70 כיכר ו2,400 שקל ויצפה את אדני פתח המועד ואת מזבח הנחושת ואת מחבר הנחושת אשר לו ואת כל כלי המזבח ואת אדני החצר סביב ואת אדני שער החצר ואת כלי יגדות המשכן ואת כל יגדות החצר סביב.
Please rise.
ומן התכלת בהר גמן בתולעת השני עשו בגדי שרת לשרת בקודש ועשו את בגדי הקודש אשר לאהרון כאשר ציווה אדוני את
משה.
And we're all going to say together, Chazak,
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 V'ni
Chazek.
חזק חזק ונתחזק.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah hamet, v'chayei olam natan b'tukenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Mazel tov. Are you sharing the name?
Yeah, Micah Gabriel.
Mike Gabriel and saying in Hebrew, Gabriel. Beautiful. Okay. Mazel tov to the Rootsang clan. I don't know if other people are in town, but hope that it was a boring labor and delivery as I prayed for it. Okay. Mazel tov. All right. We're going to now recite a Misha Berach L'Cholim, a special prayer for those in need of healing. When I reach the pod, please add any names of those who may be in your thoughts. Misha Berach Avoteinu Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarai Rikav Yahu Yivarech Reped HaCholim Dodi Knebel, Mindy Zimmerman, Robin Borges, Raina Rosendorf, Pia Mina Bat Asna, Menachem Mendel, Yona Ben Bela, Yaakov, Andrew Alper, Shalom Ben Chaim, Hedy Bat Evelyn, Rachel Bat Eleonora, Joel Tarlo, Aaron Vajda, Zalman Mordechai, Aaron Ben Yehudit, Adina Bat Guta, Shoshana Bat Toda, Sarah Chana Bat Zisel Bedov Merrill Halevi, Gary Lefkowitz, Eric Laxman, Dov Meir Ben Abraham Udivara HaKohen, Michael Stos, Pesach Ruchel Bat Dina, Tzvi Hirschbar Esther, Faith Braunschweig, Hirsch Ben Prochana, Patricia Wingate, Deborah Ramirez, Zev Benyamin, Shlomo Sheba, Alona Batsara. Any other names people would like to have added? Yes?
Evelyn Moore, my sister-in-law, Barbara Isaacson, my wife, and Alma Isaacson.
Ariel Atias and Yehudi Batz groups.
Lou?
Sherry Thompson, Maria Essay,
Mary Ardale.
Gregory Lieber.
V'kol ha'cholim, ha'kadosh baruch hu yimalei rachamim aleihem l'achzikam l'rapotam v'shlachnan v'shema min hashamayim refuat ha'nefesh refuat ha'guf shabbakim milizot u'for kavalavo ha'shabbat alav yizman karib v'nomar amen. Okay. So, by the way, we have some new faces here this morning who are coming here for the first time. This is not a normal Shabbat morning here at ACI in terms of how we structure Shabbat morning services, although hopefully if you think I wish every Shabbat was set up like this, you can tell me about that at the Kiddush. But we're going to do a little bit of learning now, and it's not going to come from me. We have some special guests this morning. So actually, I want to say 2 or 3 of you were here this past Hanukkah, where we hosted a training from our friends at Sella, based out of Brooklyn, which was a Narcan training. We had it on a Thursday night. And after we did it, people really enjoyed it. And we sort of decided that in our shul, the best way to get the largest number of people to learn is to do it on a Saturday morning. So we invited them back. And so in lieu of Devar Torah for me, now you all are get a break from my voice for a little while. I'm delighted to invite up Jeremy and Ben from Sella, who have been here from the start, which is also wonderful, to do a little bit of teaching.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeremy Poole. This is Benjamin Richmond, and as Rabbi Josh said, we're here from Sella. So he's not giving his Devar Torah, I'll give a little bit and then we'll train. So that's what I hopefully will do for you guys today. So in this week's Torah portion, Parsha Pikudei, we witnessed the culmination of the Mishkan's creation, a sacred effort that required every individual's contribution, no matter how big or small, to invite a divine presence into their midst. This communal endeavor underscores not just the physical construction of a sacred space, but the spiritual bonds it forged within a community, reminding us together we have the power to manifest spaces that create purpose and healing. So as we gather together today, I want to share what Sella is. We are a spiritual recovery community built upon Jewish principles. So we believe that Judaism is an entry point for healing and helping people find their humanity. So as we gather to get together today, let's carry forward the spirit of collective responsibility and care. Just as our ancestors joined forces to build the Mishkan, so too must we unite in our efforts to combat addiction and foster recovery within our communities. The act of preparing ourselves with this life-saving drug Narcan is more than just a safety measure. It's actually a declaration of our commitment to uphold the sanctity of life, echoing the meticulous care and accountability detailed in this week's parsha. By weaving together the principles of transparency and responsibility, as well as communal care from the Torah, into our approach with addiction and recovery, we not only honor the heritage, but reinforce the fabrics of our community, making it safer, making it more accessible, and also allowing us to leave our 10%, right? Allowing us to leave our crop for the wandering, the hungry, the orphan. So that is my little bit of Devar Torah for you guys. Hopefully it really landed with today's Torah portion. And today, more importantly, I'm going to get into why I'm here and why it's important to me. Just as recently as a month ago, I lost my cousin to an opioid overdose. It wasn't his intention to die. I promise you that. I went to a party with 3 of his friends. They were going out for a night of fun, and 3 of them woke up dead. Yeah. So with Narcan, this is a life-saving substance. Has the ability at those parties, or if you're in the scenes, and I know this is not the environment, but we live in a world where addiction is present. If you're on the train, if you're in your community, we can see the suffering of those around us. And Narcan, what it allows us to do, it takes us from a passerby to being able to be a participant in saving someone's life. And how do we do that? First, we got to understand what this is. I'm going to give Rabbi Josh at the end of this more of the scientific and like the detailed structures of naloxone and Narcan if you want that information. Today, I thought it was more important for us to actually understand how we can use this, right? What we need to do to be able to be aware of someone in an opioid overdose, and then what we can do to take steps to prevent and save life. So the first thing that we're going to do is we have to be aware of what we're looking for. So we're looking for an opioid overdose. Now, opioid overdose, the symptoms and signs of it, what it can look like is labored breathing. Individuals will look pale, blue. There can be a gurgling or a hard labored breathing sound, and the individual is really unresponsive. If you notice in the neighborhood, or if you're walking, sometimes it looks like someone falling asleep on themselves and they're nodding. That might not be an overdose, but that is an indication that someone's using opioid. Again, in this setting, the thing that I would say is this can be used if someone misuses their medication as well, right? Let's say you took too much of your painkiller at times and your body didn't know. This can help prevent an overdose in that situation as well. So let's say you notice something that looks off. I walk up, I see Ben, he is blue, he has labored breathing, and I'm concerned. I know that I am armed with Narcan. What I would do is I would walk up to him and I would shout, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need help?" He's still unresponsive. At that time, I would take the approach because I'm trained and I feel comfortable. I have Narcan on me. I'd walk up to Ben, and what I would do is we would give him, we would take our hands in the form of a fist, and we're going to rub their chest plate in the middle of the breastplate. It's called a sternal rub. It's very uncomfortable. If you want, you can go ahead and do it to yourself. You do not have to, but it is uncomfortable. If someone's unconscious or just sleeping, if you give them a sternal rub and they're not in an overdose, they're likely to wake up because of the discomfort from it. Okay, so now I believe that this individual is experiencing an overdose. What I'm going to do is I'm in a crowd of people. I'm going to ask you, can you please make sure to call 911? I'm going to focus to make sure that I tell, because screaming out, someone call 911. Now we have about 15 people. I don't know if 911 is called because I'm focused on helping to preserve life right now. So after I've asked, I'm going to walk up to Ben and give him the sternal rub again. He's unresponsive. I'm going to grab my kit. Inside your kit, you will be given a kit at the end of the training. In each of your guys' Narcan kits, there's 2 doses of Narcan. This is a single dose of Narcan. So I know he's unresponsive. What I do is I just pull the back of the packet. I take the plunger out. He's in a flat position. I put the tip of the plunger in his nose, and I just decompress it. At that time, you're gonna have about 2 minutes to wait to see if he's responsive. If he's not responsive in the next 2 minutes, then you're gonna give another dose. By that time, hopefully EMS has arrived. If not, like where you're gonna ask if someone else has a Narcan kit. After you've given the 2 doses, if the individual is not responsive, at that time, if you don't have any more doses, you can give rescue breaths. In here, there is a shield. There will be gloves in your kit. There's a face shield. It's not CPR. If you're not CPR certified, you should not be giving CPR to anybody. Once again, rescue breaths, the way that you would do it, you put the mask on. It's 2 breaths in the beginning, then it's a breath every 30 seconds. Everything that I just shared with you, and I know it's crazy, and I want to ask questions because I know there's a lot. It's like, okay, this like just see someone unresponsive. There's probably questions on, can this hurt somebody? If I had extra kits and we weren't taking data, I would take one of these kits out right now and I'd spray it in my nostrils to help you guys understand that it won't have no effect on you. This has been tested on pregnant women and it hasn't hurt the children or the pregnant mother. If you're having a heart attack or anything, it's not going to affect anything outside of blocking an opioid receptor on the brain for about 30 to 90 minutes is the shelf life of this medication. So if you did have something where you needed a painkiller and you sprayed this, you just tell the EMS or whatever that I've had Narcan, painkillers will not be responsible for about 30 to 90 minutes. I think that's about really it with like just being able to train with Narcan. Again, there is science behind this. There is like what it does to the brain. And I'll give all that information to Rabbi Josh to blast out to you guys in the email. I just thought I usually do this as a presentation. I wanted to honor how it was set up today. But if that's it, I think we are Narcan trained at this point, really. Like I want to also hope you guys feel comfortable. If this wasn't enough information, there are videos online to show you how to do it, to what to look for. But for us, the reason that us here at Sella is coming to congregations and wanting to train people, again, it's a conversation starter for most. I've heard young family. I have 2 young children. Like, as much as I want to protect them from the world, we're living in a world where addiction is present. In New York alone, by the time you guys go home, got out of your house this morning, came to services, and leave, 1 person dies every 3 hours in New York State alone. So again, being able to take ourselves from, oh, what do I do? I'm scared. The way that we build confidence and the way that we can have confidence is either having the information present about what we're dealing with or having a skill set to make us feel that we are armed enough to deal with what we're dealing with. So hopefully today I've started you on your journey of a little bit of information. And if you choose to leave today, you'll be armed with a skill set to then help people as I've been helped in my journey throughout this, my experience in my own recovery journey. So again, I really appreciate your guys' time. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Rabbi Josh, for putting this together. Yeah, we have kids to. Yeah. I apologize. I might be a few. One of my colleagues her car blew up. Her car blew up on her way back from Philly, and she has an Narcan. If I don't have enough kits, I will take your name and your address, and I'll mail them to you this week. So that's also what I can do. I have about 12 kits though, so we should have just enough.
Yeah, I can pass it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Some of you may notice that I keep one of these actually in my backpack. I also keep one up in my office. And what does this have to do with Open Door Shabbat? Well, in some sense, nothing, and in some sense, everything. You know, there are a lot of reasons that people don't feel comfortable coming to shul on Shabbat. One of them is what we've been talking about. The other one is that, you know, we are not just a part of the community. We are of the community. And, you know, as we were just told, like, this is something that's happening. This is something that's happening like right before our eyes, even if we don't necessarily see it all the time. those of you who know that I have my day job working for Live On New York and encouraging organ donation. Most of the time when I visit a hospital and I'm called on a case about organ donation, a lot of them, unfortunately, these days are in the context of people who have had drug overdoses, because it's one of several ways in which a person's life can be thrown into grave danger, but where they're put on artificial respiration, and if they die, then the family now has to have a conversation about donation after they've also been dealing with this tragedy. So it interfaces in my day-to-day work as much as it does in my ACI work. Yes, Arthur?
You said drug overdose and opioid. Now, you can be a drug overdose by heroin or other things.
I'll let them explain that.
What was the question?
The question was, we use the term drug overdose and also opioid.
Yeah,
This
it's specific for opioid overdose.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have clarified that what I meant in my work was that it could be a lot of other substances, but it's not uncommon that when I'm at a hospital with one of my colleagues talking to a family, it is in the context of that's how the person ended up here. So again, if we ran out of kits, we can always get more, and we can always bring you all back for third time's the charm. But with that in mind, what time is it? It's 11:47. We're right on track. We are going to do some of our more traditional tefillot, just because there are parts that are going on in our world we have to make sure that we recite, including a prayer for our country and a prayer for the state of Israel and a prayer for the hostages that have still not been released. I keep hoping that one week I'm going to show up here on Saturday and we're going to say a prayer for gratitude of them coming home as opposed to a prayer to release them, but that's not true yet this week. Yes.
We also started praying for the Ukrainian and Russian people as well.
Who
Ukrainian and Russian people.
that are being held captive?
Well, some of them are, I'm sure.
I mean, the prayer for captives that we recite can be it has language in there about Israel as well as pretty much any other place in the world. So yeah, I would say so. Okay, so prayer for our country is found on page 148 in the English. Prayer for the state of Israel is on 149 in the Hebrew, and then I will read the prayer for captives in the Hebrew as well. Please rise, page 148. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond and true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals of free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. Prayer for the state of Israel, page 149. Avinu Shabbat Shemayim, Sori Yisrael v'go'alo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmicha Gevulatenu. Hagen aleh ve'avrat chastecha, ufros aleh sukat shlomecha, ushlach orcha v'yamicha l'rashat tzareha v'yoatzeh, v'taknein be'etzah tova milpanecha. Hazek yudei midinei eretz kodshenu, v'amgilei melahenu Yeshua, v'ater nitzachon tatrem. V'atata shalom ba'aretz v'imchato olam le'oshveha, v'nomar Amen. Mishaberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarar Rikar Rachel V'Layahu Yivarech Yishmor V'Yinsor Nidiretz V'Agan Al Yisrael Ushluyav V'Yet Kol Achenu Hanatinim B'Tzara B'Shiva Ba'avor Shekol Hagado Hagadosh Hazeh Mitpala Ba'avurav Hagadosh Baruch Hu Yimel Rachamim Aleihem V'Otzihem Mechoshek Mesal Mavet U'Mosrotem Yinatek U'Msukoteihem Yoshiem Yishivem Meherel Lechek Mishpachotehem Yodu L'Adonai Chasto V'Niflotav L'Bnei Adam Vikuyam Bahem Nikra Shekatuv Uvdiyah Adonai Yeshuvun Uvav Tzion Barina V'Simchat Olam Al Rosham Sason V'Simcha V'Yasigu V'Nasu Yagon Ba'anaka Vinomar, Amen. May be seated. Okay, so we're going to be wrapping up in a few moments. So one of the things that makes me really, we're going to do Ein Eloheinu, Aleinu, Kaddish Tom, all those things, announcements before we have Kiddush. But before we wrap up, I just want to say that one of the nice things, one of the best parts, I would say, about being the rabbi of the synagogue is that we're very happy to have low stakes experiments, and nobody takes it that personally if something we try doesn't work. Or because there are also times where we try it and something works really, really well. So if you've never been here before, you had no idea we were doing it this morning, you should feel free to share your feedback about it. You can tell me, I can take it positive or negative, or you can tell any of the people who are here every week and are happy to take feedback from you. So please do not hesitate, because I have a month to get it right for the next time. But it is really important to us here because, you know, I would say that in many ways, our congregation constantly thinks about what it means to make it easier for people to find us and connect with us. You know, on a basic level, we still have a problem at ACI. People walk down the street and don't even know a synagogue's here. But there's all kinds of other reasons why people don't necessarily want to walk into synagogue. And at a minimum, we can, of course, try to make things easier to understand. So that the next time you come, when you come next week, where it's going to look more like a traditional service, you can feel a little more at home and comfortable with what we're doing here. So with that, we continue on page 182 with Ein Eloheinu. Ein Eloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadoneinu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Sheiktiru Avotenu Lefanecha Et Ketoret Hasamim Ein Eloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu. Please rise, page 183 for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol atekenu la'leotzer breshit shelo asamim koyei haraton v'lo samanu mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam kalkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kekol ha'onam v'anamnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim l'pnei melech melchei hamakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai imloch le'olam v'oed v'nemar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz v'yom lahu v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. May be seated. This week at ACI, we observed the following yortzites: Florence Epsteiner, Clementine Krell, Ida Levinson, John Cruz, Ida Michael. Those are mourning, those are observing yortzeit. Please rise, page 184 for the Kaddish Tom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yid Gadal, Yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma divarach yurute, v'amlich malchute, v'chayekon, v'yomechon, v'chayedechol v'Yisrael, Ba'agala ubizman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehe shmei Rabba mevarach, le'olam l'mel maya, Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudsha b'rikud, le'ela min kol birkata v'shirata, tush v'chata v'nechamata damiram v'yama v'imru, Amen. Yehe shlama Rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'romah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Ali, you're making announcements today?
Shabbat Shalom. On behalf of our president, Janet, who could not be here today, but is watching online stream, thank you so much for joining us. And a special welcome to all those joining us here for the very first time here. So happy to see you and so happy to have you and to welcome you. And thank you, Rabbi Josh, for leading today's service. Upcoming children's programming includes our now every week Talk Shabbat service. And our next junior congregation with Mara Audrey will be on April 6th. And for those of you who enjoyed the service today, or who have feedback, our next open door Shabbat will be on April 13th. If you have a bit of the thespian bug in you, we are looking for volunteers for our Purim Spiel, which will be during our Purim evening services on Saturday, March 23rd, with the kids program beginning at 7 p.m. and the Megillah meeting at 8 p.m. Followed by the next day, Sunday, March 24th, from 2 to 5 p.m., we will have our Purim Carnival, including food, face painting, crafts, games, a photo booth, and a puppet show called The Missing Magician by Lucky Duck Puppets. And last but certainly not least, our Michelle Note fundraiser is going on. Orders are due by Monday, March 18th, so if you would still get those in, we have tonight and tomorrow, and all the information for all these events and everything from the ACI are on our website. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom. Please join us right after the service in the lobby through to the left in the living still room for a very nice kiddush that we have tonight.
We conclude with the singing of Adon Olam on page 187. Following that, we'll do Kiddush and Hamotzi in here. Please, if you can, remember to return your books to the back before you leave. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nibra Li'enasa V'Katso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'Yakareh Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'Hu Aya V'Hu Oveh V'Hu Yiyeh V'Tifara V'Hu Yiyeh V'Tifara V'Hu Echad V'Ein Sheni Leham Shilo Lehachbira V'Li Reshit V'Li Tachlit V'Lo Ha'oz V'Hamizra V'Lo Ha'oz V'Hamizra V'Hu Eli V'Chai Go'ali V'Tzor Kabli V'Eitzara V'Hu Nisi Umanosli Minakosi V'Yom Ekra Minakosi V'Yom Ekra Be'ado Akid Ruchi V'Et Ishan V'Ayira V'Im Ruchi Keviati Adonai Li V'Lo Ira Adonai Li V'Lo Ira. Please rise for Kiddush and Hamotzi. I thought I lost track of it.
My apologies.
Oh, it's not. Oh, it's okay. V'shamaru b'nei Yisrael Hashem v'alozot Hashem Dor Tambrito Olam Ve'inu Ve'bnei Yisrael Kili Olam Kishesh Nemi Masad Al Shemayim V'Yad Haaretz V'Yom Hashvi Shabbat V'Yinafash Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kodesh Sheish V'Yitavod Simcha M'Laktecha V'Yom Hashvi Shabbat Ma'alecha Lo tasa komalaka ata bika bita abdaka bavta bimtaka birka shirbi shiraka kishesh yami masada naira shemayim bidar today on Bekol Shirba by Nafi Amashbi. Okay, Berachana Yomashba by Yakache Sabri Baruchatana Hinafalam Bri Priagafen. Hotef Yadechem must be Lachol Chayratzon Baruchatan Alina Melech Haolam Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for Kiddush. Thank you so much for coming today.